Of course, it's the biggest day of the year on the NFL calendar, and while two quarterbacks prepare to play in Super Bowl 53, there is a third quarterback still not playing, but still very much in the conversation. It has been roughly 2 years since quarterback Colin Kaepernick took a knee in protest for the first time. Well, President Trump remaining steadfast in his view in today's interview with CBS News, saying, quote, "I was just one that I felt very important. You can't be kneeling for the national anthem. You have to respect our flag and our country. I want that as president, and I'd want that as a citizen." Not everyone feels that way, though. Rihanna turned down an opportunity to perform at this year's halftime show, citing support of the former 49ers Super Bowl quarterback, and so did Cardi B. Since initially launching his protest back in 2016, Colin Kaepernick has filed a grievance against the league, saying owners have colluded to keep him out of the game. It is a topic NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell addressed in a news conference this week.
I think if a team decides that Colin Kaepernick or any other player can help their team win, that's what they'll do. They want to win, and they make those decisions individually in the best interest of their club.
Here's Kaepernick's attorney firing back during an appearance on NBC's Today.
The commissioner was roasted appropriately on social media yesterday. Anybody who believes that will believe that Mark Sanchez was a better choice, or some of the other, how shall I put it delicately, people who were well past their prime that were signed this year.
The twisting of the screw there. Let me start with Clint Watts, devoted Patriots fan. Bring you into the conversation here first. I looked at the transcript of this interview. So Margaret Brennan of CBS sits down with the president. A lot of this is going to air during the Super Bowl tonight. And what you see is kind of what we saw in the interview earlier this week with the Daily Caller. And the Daily Caller sort of led the horse to water, trying to make him drink, saying there's been less kneeling, ratings have gone up, the protests have diminished. Sure. Do you take credit for that? He didn't. It was a crazy question. He stepped back and didn't. You see the same thing here. It takes 3 or 4 questions before he finally gives the quote that I just read there. Your reflection on what we've seen over the course of this season when it comes to the protests and how it's been commented on or dealt with by the President of the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting how he likes to take credit at times and then backs away, and you know, you never really know what his position is. I think the disappointment I have with it is that the president puts himself into everything, and nothing in America can exist now without the president somehow involving himself or making it about him. So that's disappointing. The other part, I just know for me, when this controversy flared up, you know, I struggle with this question. Do I take a knee or not? And then it's like I'm either choosing President Trump or Colin Kaepernick if I take a knee. For me, standing up during the national anthem is a lot about my military service. Mm-hmm. You know, it has nothing to do with these two individuals. And I want to support Kaepernick because I know that, you know, for young black men, the idea that you are in equal danger of going out and being shot by a police officer as somebody else maybe on the street is a serious issue we need to deal with in the country. But then if I go the other way, I'm in this confusing trap where I'm now somehow, by standing up during the national anthem, supporting President Trump, someone who I think everyone who watches the show knows I disagree with vehemently. So we're in this weird situation where is how do we take the next step forward? And, you know, I want to support those issues around law enforcement and how we do law enforcement correctly. I work with state and local law enforcement and have for decades. I know there's issues there and that we got to work with them. I don't really know how to move forward in that. At the same point with Colin Kaepernick, do I think he's better than a lot of the quarterbacks that are out there? Yes. And I think what Goodell did not say was the calculation is about money. You know, when you bring someone into your team, is it about winning or is it about the entire package? And that's what I think President Trump played very well into when he created this contract.
Don, get in on this. Clint talking about the universality of the protest, how it's evolved here over the last 2 years.
It has evolved, and some players have chosen to end the protests, and some artists are choosing to perform at the Super Bowl. I think that Colin Kaepernick did his job. My good frat brother Colin Kaepernick did his job in that he called attention, he called the world's attention to a movement, to a moment which has become a movement. And Colin Kaepernick will live on in a vaunted place in the annals of history as a result. So much respect to him. But you know, I'm really disappointed in Roger Goodell. In the words of Slim Charles from David Simon's The Wire, you know, if it's a lie, we're going to fight on that lie, is what Slim Charles said. Meaning that it's a lie from the beginning that Colin Kaepernick was not qualified to play in the NFL. It's a lie from the beginning that he cannot help a team. But let's continue to fight on that lie. As a matter of fact, let's hire the Glover Park Group to give us research to support what we want to do one way or another. It's a bold-faced lie. I'd just thirdly like to point out that, you know, Kaepernick is not the only reason to fall back from supporting the NFL. The NFL has known for generations that CTE is a serious issue. They have obfuscated it. They have covered it up. They have had terrible labor relations practices with respect to player health on an ongoing basis. And these men are becoming debilitated generation of former gladiators because of the NFL's obfuscation. There are a myriad of issues here with this troubled league.
El Joe, I'll give the last word to you here. I mentioned Cardi B saying she's not going to perform, Rihanna backing out as well. Help us understand the degree to which these protests have affected the conversation more broadly outside of just
I would agree that I think that Colin did what he took the action that he was in the position to do at that particular time. And you mentioned of trying to decide, do I join the protest? What do I do in this action if I still really care about the issue? I mean, one of the things we talk about in the movement is you act where you are and what you have the capacity and the moral high ground to do. And so he, being in the NFL, being a player and being able to say, by me taking this risk and doing this action will draw attention, which attention on an issue is part of the cycle of advocacy in general. And he's done that. I think now we continue to support him in his efforts against this organization, which not only in addition to that, the way they treat cheerleaders, the way they've handled domestic violence issues, I think he's done his job and we continue to do our job.
Jerry, lastly to you, just going back to what I said there of the transcript, do you see the president moving away from this? His relationship with sports has been a thing of fascination and curiosity for me over these last 2 years.
Right, because it's about him ultimately, as Clint was saying, but it's also a classic us versus them issue. Yeah. Two Americas, Donald Trump, in his mind, and to a lot of his followers, represents the patriotic American, right? And those other people who are taking a knee and disrespecting our flag, that's a disgraceful America. So it's just really, it's this way, us, classic Nixonian us versus them.
There you go, classic
Coming
us
from
versus
the
them.
guy who just couldn't happen to find his way when it came time for the draft. He just couldn't make it out for his country when he was needed.
There you go. All right, my thanks to the panel. Jeremy Peters, Eltroy Williams, Don Calloway, Clint Watts. Thanks to Adrian Elrod as well. And coming up in our next